Moments with Mark chapter 8, starting with verse 31. Here Jesus predicts his death. Then Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things and be rejected by the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. And Jesus claiming that he is the Messiah, but he is a suffering Messiah, much like we read in Isaiah 53. He would be killed, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead. As he talked about this openly with his disciples, Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. And you can see this in Peter, can't you? He misunderstood the Messiah. How are you going to be a political king if someone kills you? Jesus, don't say these kind of things. It's not adding to your political career as Messiah. Jesus turned around and looked at the disciples and reprimanded Peter. So Peter reprimands Jesus, and now Jesus reprimands Peter. "Get away from me, Satan," he said. "You are seeing things merely from a human point of view and not from God's." And isn't that our tendency? To see things from our human point of view and not God's viewpoint? I think in the end, when we see God's viewpoint of many of the turns in our lives, in our spiritual journey, that we'll say, "Oh, yeah, I see it now." But at the time, we don't necessarily see God's point of view. And so he has grace with us and understanding and mercy, for which we are thankful. Then, calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways." That means you must give up your own way of living and live the way of Jesus. You must take up your cross. That means you must die to selfishness and follow me. Follow his path. Follow his pattern. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news or the gospel, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my message in these adulterous and sinful days, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in glory of his Father with holy angels. Thus concludes chapter 8 of the Gospel of Mark. We are now moving almost halfway through the Gospel of Mark, and Jesus has been teaching. He has been talking about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. He has been healing. He has been raising from the dead. He has been casting out demons. And he has been teaching, mentoring his disciples, his apostles. And so we have this closing of Mark chapter 8, where Jesus is summing up that if you really want to be a follower of me, you must take up your own cross, die to selfishness, follow my pattern of life, and you must leave your own way behind, because now you are walking in the way of Jesus. That's what it means to be a follower of Christ. That's what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Live that kind of life, and you will find fulfillment. But also he warns us, if we try to hide our Christian life in these adulterous and sinful days that we are in, Jesus will not be our defender. We must rise up in these days especially and claim the name of Christ, live the life of Christ, and stand for Christ.